So, I love TED. TED is very uplifting. Generally, you learn a lot of new things. And, I thought long and hard about what I wanted to talk about. And ultimately, I'm going to stand here. I'm going to punch you in the gut really hard. But at the end of it, I promise I'll leave you with a positive note, okay? I want to talk to you about buying ourselves broke. I want to talk about the fact that in this country, we've been masking the true cost of our consumerism for the last 2 decades. So, or I should say the last 2 generations, really. But how many people in this room feel more broke than they did 2 years ago? We're all friends here, right? We can admit it. And how many people who can remember how they felt 2 years ago felt more broke than they did 2 years before that? Okay? There's a lot of discussion right now in the political realm about what we're going to do about it. And I have news. The government is not going to help you. Okay? The reality is, look around this room right now, more than half of us are going to die in poverty. Okay, that's the ugly reality of the way we're going in this country. We have massive amounts of money exiting this country, and we don't understand basic economics. So we're going to talk today about that cross-section where social responsibility hits economic responsibility. We know, and people have heard me say this for a long time, we know that for every $100 that we spend in a local business, $45 stays and recirculates in our community. And for the same $100 that we spend in a national chain, only 13 remains in our community, and yet we still choose to flock to national chains because we believe we're saving money. So in 2007, I wanted to at least take this concept to our leaders in the state of Arizona and explain to them what I'm talking about when I talk about buying ourselves broke. We did an economic study looking at the state of Arizona's office supply contract, and we chose office supplies because it's pretty basic. It's kind of vanilla. Everybody really understands it. Thinking about where the money is going, it's a $5 million contract that we awarded to Office Max, okay? And we compared and contrasted what if, hypothetically, we had awarded that contract to WIST, which is a third-generation Arizona company. And you can clearly see here what we proved is we would have had 3 times the rate of return had we awarded that contract to an Arizona company. The methodology, some people scratch their heads. The methodology, first and foremost, WIST has 100% full-time employees with benefits. Okay, Office Max has brought us primarily part-time employees with no benefits, and they end up on some sort of a healthcare program that we all end up paying for, and our cost savings begins to erode right there. The second area, charitable contributions. That's a really impactful one. WIST gives $35,000 a year to Arizona charities and has done so for the last 10 years and could prove it. Office Max has never given anything in Arizona. And the third is really the most impactful, and I think it mostly affects the people in this room. WIST does business with Arizona. And what I mean by that is they hire local graphic designers, CPAs, attorneys, PR companies, marketing teams. All of those jobs are outsourced with Office Max. And so when we threw Staples into the mix to see is there a difference between the big boxes, okay? What we learned was that Staples would actually pack and process our orders in Los Angeles and ship them here via FedEx. They don't even have a regional distribution center in Arizona. So the net returns, awarding that $5 million contract to Staples, would be almost nil, okay? They hire retailers, clerks, that sort of thing here, but otherwise there's no money that stays here. And at this point, I like to say the sad ending to this tale is that, the study we did was in 2007. 2009, the Office Max contract expired, and the state of Arizona awarded that contract to Staples because they undercut them by a couple $1,000. Now, this is great, and every single time I tell this story, everybody does the, I could have had a V8, duh. They were all idiots. That's what I hear. But we shop like this every day. This is what we do when we choose to buy cheap goods that are not manufactured here. We're exporting our wealth, okay? And our entire team of economic developers here in the state of Arizona, they are focused on the global, and they're making the assumption that the local is going to take care of itself, okay? For those of us that are in business here in Arizona, we feel this all the time. We're constantly awarding contracts to companies from all over the world and ignoring the people who are in business right here in Arizona, okay? Our entire economic development model is based on attracting jobs into the area rather than focusing on the more sustainable model of startups, incubators, business expansion, business retention. Okay, so flipping that triangle upside down, focusing on our local assets is a key piece to how we're going to recover or not here in the state of Arizona. Now, I want to share with you a great story. SCF Arizona, is anybody familiar with SCF Arizona? Okay, they are a workers' compensation company here. They employ 518 people. They make it their mission to source their goods and services locally. Okay, they, as a matter of fact, with 518 employees directly, because of the way they source their goods and services, 82% in 2009, they indirectly support 3,600 Arizona jobs. Okay, now they're not just being altruistic. Okay, they're a $100 million company. They had a $500 million positive impact on the state of Arizona. But what are they doing here? They're strengthening their own client base. Okay, so by awarding more contracts to Arizona companies, more Arizona companies are going to then in turn come back and employ them. So looking at this very realistic truth here, we need to understand with 950,000 fewer jobs in America today, there is no cost savings, reminding ourselves that these dollars that are leaving our community are never coming back. 90% of the companies in America employ fewer than 20 people, and yet we continue to focus on the remaining 10%, okay? This is a reality. For every national chain that moves into Arizona that brings 2 jobs, 3 local jobs are lost. And thinking about, a company like Cabelas, are you familiar with Cabelas? When they moved into Glendale, many people don't realize they average $25 million per store in subsidies to move into a neighborhood. That's how much they get just to move in. The city of Glendale gave that one Cabelas $68 million. Those are taxpayer dollars, and now they can no longer afford to keep their libraries and their senior centers open. And yet we still continue. Okay, now let's talk about online shopping. Municipalities do not run without your sales tax dollars. That's the reality. And we look at what's going on in Arizona today. We have Amazon is moving in, right? They're moving in at a rapid rate, and we have some leaders who are championing how many extra jobs they're bringing to Arizona. But the reality is 1.5 billion will be missing. In that length of time, from 2007 to 2012, that means 322 million missing from our city and state sales tax coffers just in 2010 alone. So thinking about where do those dollars go, I know a ton of people. I met a woman one time. She was bragging to me about doing all of her holiday shopping online. And then later in the conversation, it became apparent that her husband was a firefighter. She never made the connection that the sales tax she was avoiding paying 100% goes to pay her husband's salary. So looking at this, shocking reality, I like to tell people when you're shopping online, you're actually giving the fire department the bird. The reality is, are we ready to deal without, some people say, well, we have such an extreme political environment right now, we'll privatize fire, police and fire. Where do we go? Where do we end that? Okay, so what, only the people who can afford to pay for police and fire protection will have it? Okay, I would argue, I submit to you, that if you don't pay your sales tax, they will find another way to collect it from you. Okay, we enjoy relatively low property taxes here in Arizona. We are reliant upon sales tax revenues to keep our cities and state moving forward. If we don't pay them, guess what? We're going to start seeing more and more things like photo radar, like red light running tickets that now, they're getting so expensive. It's because they're going broke, and yet our political leaders are duking it out over who mismanaged the money. Look at general government is only 6% of the budget. Okay, parks, libraries, human services, these are all incredibly important ways for us to keep the dollars here. Now, I want to talk to you about how, what is it like to ground it? What does this mean to each one of us? Broken social contracts. I tell this story all the time of a fictitious soccer mom. She's out there, soccer mom or little league mom. She goes out week after week after week, and she buys the team snacks at Costco because she's been told by her television set that Costco is the cheapest around, and thinking that she's doing a good thing and she's saving money. And so there's a million of these soccer moms out there, and they're all doing that week after week after week. But here in Arizona, at the end of the season where they all get together and all the soccer moms brainstorm, they're going to have the big year-end party and they need to pool all their resources and put their money together, it's painfully obvious that what are they going to do? What do you think they're going to do? They're not going to be able to go to Costco, right, and get donated goods. They need free stuff at this point to put on the big party. They're going to go right out and knock on Eddie Bash's door. And that is what I call a broken social contract. I mean, thinking about how we choose as a community to invest or not in those businesses that are invested in us long term. Taking that short-term thinking and turning it into long-term vision and making sure that we keep those dollars right here. I think it's a choice, really, that we have to make. We can't have our cake and eat it too. We have to make decisions now about how we're going to spend our money and what this city and state are going to look like. Now more than ever, I think we need to make these choices. So these are the excuses. And I thought long and hard before I put this on here. I really did, because normally I like to speak positively to people. And at this point in time, I decided that this was the crowd that I really thought I could connect with some pretty harsh realities. I don't know what's local. I hear that one all the time, okay? So we can just ask. We can ask, okay? I walk into stores all the time, and I say, hey, who owns this joint? And some of them might go, oh, yeah, some company out of, Pittsburgh. And they might go, oh, Joe, he's right there, You never know what you're going to get, but it doesn't hurt to ask, okay? And our directory at localfirstaz.com has 1,800 Arizona companies listed on there. And I always have people, I'll mention something like Shamrock. That's easy, right? That's easy to pick up, Shamrock or Hickman's, and people always say, I didn't know it was an Arizona company. It's about you live here now and learning what our local companies are. I can't afford to buy local. This is a painful one that I hear on a regular basis. It is a myth. If nothing else, the national chains have convinced us that we no longer have to shop around. But in reality, there are many, many, many deals to be had at locally owned businesses. We dispel this myth on a regular basis. I go out to, sometimes I'll get invited to go on the news, and this is the number one thing I hit on. I found big, 5 different examples of cheaper pet food at a local pet supply place than a big box. It took me 3 seconds flat to find it. And thinking also, the second part of that equation is sometimes when people say I can't afford to buy local, what they mean is I don't have the patience to save my money to buy a quality product. So what they do is they go out and buy a cheap chair that's manufactured somewhere on the other side of the world, and instead of buying a handcrafted chair that would cost a little bit more money, but if you fast forward 5 years, they've replaced the cheap chair 3 times over, and it actually cost them more money in the long run rather than if they had just invested in the more expensive chair initially that would have lasted a greater length of time, and it's inconvenient. That's a painful one. Given the fact that we're all going broke, it's inconvenient, okay? We've bankrupted ourselves in a never-ending quest for convenience. And, I get a little sassy right here. Imagine that. How inconvenient will it be? How many people in here have children? Will it be inconvenient when your child is 35 years old and still lives at home because there's no jobs left to be had? Will that be a little, kind of rub you the wrong way, maybe a little bit? So now here's the point where I get to the positive part, okay, I promise. So we just launched a new campaign called Shift Arizona, and I encourage you to visit this website to learn more about it. There was a study that came out in Grand Rapids, Michigan at the end of 2008 that showed that if everyone in that county, which is roughly the size of Tucson, if everyone there simply linked arms and shifted 10% of their spending from national to local business, okay, I'm not suggesting you spend 10% more. You're shifting 10% of your existing spending from national to local business. It would create $130 million new dollars recirculating in that community, 1,600 brand new jobs, and $52 million in new local wages. So we took that math and we stuck it into a calculator right here in Arizona, and we launched this campaign where we're encouraging every business, every nonprofit, every individual, and every government to shift 10% of the spending from national to local. Okay, so you can visit that. You can enter your monthly expenditures, click I pledge to shift 10%, and it will automatically share with you how much you're going to recirculate for things like parks and libraries. Okay, so this obviously is my passion. I believe that we need to, as a community and a state, link arms and begin to do business with each other. It is the only way we are going to dig out of this mess, and we have a long way to go. But investing in incubators and startups, our government needs to do that, and as individuals, we need to rethink the way we spend our money. Okay, we can either choose to grow as a community, or we can stay on the path we're on, which is detrimental to us personally, as well as the community around us. So keep your money where your home is. Thank you very much.